Right now, Democratic strategist Harlan Hill and economist Peter Marici. Peter, I'd say this is basic economics, something that you learn in Econ 101, or you used to learn anyway. I don't know how academia has been going these days, but you raise the price of something, you're going to get less of it.
Absolutely. We teach it. People don't have to learn it. If you go to a CVS in Washington, D.C., you'll find there are no longer cashiers. There are just machines and one person to help you if you have a problem. Unfortunately, in Washington, we have a terrible tax on bags, which messes up the machines, so they're constantly breaking and customers are terribly frustrated. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Coming around the corner are lots of robots, smart machines, a lot of dexterity and so forth. The potential for replacing people with machines is tremendous, and boosting the minimum wage to something like 60% of the average wage nationally will only encourage more of that to happen. Hold on to your seats. We're going to have lots more unemployment.
Well, look, I would say the reality is we are living through a transition right now. You've got an economy that, we've seen this historically before, that is transitioning more to a services and technological-based economy, which means, yes, the robots are coming. I just question, Harlan, why people need to actually speed up the process like they're doing between protests and these politicians that are demanding more and more and more money for workers. They're going to find these workers just don't have a job.
Right. I mean, Rice University just put out a report, I think it was yesterday, that said that almost 99% of human jobs would be made redundant by 2045, which is an alarming number, like what's left for the humans. And you're right. I mean, we're going to be accelerating that by this rapid increase. But at the same time, let's acknowledge that there's a lot of pain out there. 10 out of the 20 fastest growing jobs in this country earn less than $25,000 a year. Things are really bad. And we need to have some sort of increase in the minimum wage.
And so this is why you support a minimum wage.
I do. I don't support the 15% nationwide. I think that's crazy. Look, I'm from Ravenel, South Carolina. It's a little town nobody's ever heard of. And small businesses in Ravenel, South Carolina cannot afford this $15 minimum wage that a restaurant in D.C. might be able to. So across the board, it doesn't make any sense. It would be a horrible job destruction endeavor.
Look, Peter, again, I'm going to go back to those Econ 101 textbooks. There should be some kind of relationship between labor and the employers. So in other words, you allow a market system to work where employees want to work for less, if they want to work for more. I mean, this is something that is decided by them as opposed to the government getting in the way.
There's so much focus on Walmart when so many of the people that are employed in low-wage positions are employed in independently owned restaurants, hardware stores, places like that, where the relationship between employers and employees is a market. When you go to Walmart, you're dealing with a great big employer that can dictate terms. But a good deal of the wages of these low-income people making $10 an hour, say, is determined in a fair and free market. But consider this. Not only are we trying to raise the wage to 60% of the average, which is going to cost a lot of inflation, but also consider the additional cost that employers have already had to bear, because of Obamacare and things of that nature, and tougher regulations in other ways. What we're really doing here is imposing a one-size-fits-all Soviet model on the U.S. economy. In reality, the minimum wage, if we have one, should be left to vary by county. For example, set it at 40% of the average wage, and so that in Ravenel County, it's much lower than it is in Washington, D.C., and in turn lower than it is in Manhattan.
Yeah, and look, that is part of the reality of all of this. And you highlighted this early on, that there are very different living standards in different parts of the country. Anyway, good to see both you guys here. It's a debate that's going to continue. You can be assured of that as we go into November. Coming up, Donald